like the training NCO basically for all of them. I do all their in-service training. I do all the staff crisis development training, like in the schools for active threat response, for fire drills, tornado, earthquake. But the cool thing about the kids is we started a new program when I got here almost 5 years ago where we call it defend options. So we're teaching the kids more options now instead of, like I mentioned to you on the phone the other day, the Pulse nightclub attack that happened 4.5 years ago down in Orlando. 49 people were killed, and most of those were from late teens to early 30s. And nationally, since 2004, we've been training our public schools the term lockdown, which and you guys are battle warriors, okay, like me. When you've been in battle, there's not a one-dimension option that works to thrive or even just try to survive. But if you teach just a lockdown perspective to people trying to survive an active threat situation, it teaches them a one-dimensional option for an imperfect situation. So they think hiding works every time. In Pulse nightclub, you had 30 plus people killed in a bathroom because they were taught that, and this is my perspective as a professional, they were taught that. So in their mind, they think that's what I need to do because my training, I was taught, is my default setting, is my reaction setting to stress. So kids deserve more than that. So that's what we get to do. We teach them defend options. And then that's what I do for full-time work. My company, Lead Tactics, started from me trying to figure out, we're Marines, we love acronyms. I was like, man, I got to think of an acronym that just works. So I came up with LEAD. So lock, escape, alert, defend. So Lead Tactics is a tactic to utilize for leadership in a high-stress, imperfect, life or death situation. And then I kind of just took a bigger perspective because my company was designed just for active shooter, active threat training. But I have so much more that I like to do. And also too, like keynote speaking and team development workshops are an important thing that companies and businesses need, because you guys ever, how leadership's like the most overused term out there besides expert, or, the term SME, which, yeah. Friggin', I hate that. I just can't stand that term because it goes with it's like, says who? Says your last qual? You know what I mean? Like,
I always said leaders, you don't ever say you're a leader. Other people say you're a leader. If you say you're a leader, you're not a leader.
Right. I love that. Yeah, man, exactly. So same thing with the expert thing. When people always say that term expert, I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. When's your research? When's your requal? So, but back to leadership, if you think about it, it's like this far off planet that we talk about all the time in business and professional work. But leadership really is a tactic. Some of us have it naturally. There are some very natural leaders out there, but they still, to continue the clock and down the road in their life, they got to work on that, because at some point their natural level of leadership will hit them in the gut.
Yep.
And they need to develop it and keep working on it. So I look at it as I took my company from active shooter training with that acronym Lead Tactics to now a bigger perspective of really leadership development. And you can't really just think about working with someone on the term of what leadership means to you as an organization or what your mission statement supports leadership as. If we're on a team, we need to pull the leadership definition out of every individual on that team and let them share what leadership means to them at that live moment now in present time, so we can develop and work on leadership down the road in our future and growth. So that's how I'm trying to impact my way with my business, but also, our kids, man, they're the next generation, and we can't teach them to be scared anymore. We have to make them understand that courage can be the flip side of fear.
So is the business that you have now, Lead Tactics, that's sort of an extension of what you're actually doing for the county, right? Like, is that correct?
Yeah. Well, so it has nothing to do with it, but it's just,
right.
it's kind of where, like, I can't have any interaction of what I do for full-time work. I can't have that connected to my business, lead tactics, at all, just because, it's completely separate ties. Like, I will never market in the county I work in to try to do work because I don't want that conflict.
No, I didn't necessarily mean that it's one and the same, but like it stemmed from there, right? Like that's sort of like your area of expertise, and that's sort of even though you've attached the leadership aspect to the lead tactics, it's sort of an extension of what you're doing already.
Yeah, exactly.
Would that be correct?
Yes, exactly. So that all started so I got out of the Marine Reserves as a sergeant in 2009, and then I went and the next year I got a job as a government contractor for an active duty unit teaching combat skills as a civilian. So they basically found my job resume on Monster, hit me up, I interviewed, and they were like, we need route clearance guys to come teach, counter ID. I get there and they're like, oh, you're not EOD. I was like, yeah, they're super pogues. Okay. I'm like pogish. Like they run from gunfights. I'm joking.
Yeah, so you're by trade, military wise, you're an engineer, sapper.
Yeah, combat engineer, right? Sapper, yeah.
And so that school's at Fort Leonard Wood, right?
No, that school is at Courthouse Bay, Lejeune.
Oh, okay. So I thought the Marine Corps guys still go to the Army school, but that's not true.
No, so I went in 2003. So I think it's been at Courthouse Bay for a long time. Now, yeah, it's still at Courthouse Bay. The MPs go to Leonard Wood, I think, right? Don't all the
yeah, they do. I've when I was there, I saw Marines at the engineer school, but it might have been, you know how it goes. Like if there's certain follow-on courses that you can attend, maybe they had a school seat for it, but I could be wrong about that.
Well, that could have been Scott. That could have been a journeyman's course because I know the Marine Corps has some of those as well for like NCOs.
Okay.
And they do that at and you know how it is, man. I mean, my last base I worked on as a civilian was a true joint base. It had all 5 services, including Coast Guard. So you know how joint base stuff is,
including. Sorry.
Yeah. The East Coast Strike Force is what they call themselves. So, but you know how the joint base stuff, they try to tie that in more and more. So, but yeah, I didn't. Maybe they do Army Sapper School there too. I don't know, but
I know. Well, Sapper School is definitely there for the Army. I know that for a fact.
Oh, is
but
it?
I guess I had assumed that the Marines went there as well. But you are right because I was just in Lejeune, and I was obviously stationed in Lejeune. But the engineers are definitely they're on the backside of the base. I don't know if they're in Courthouse Bay because I know that's where MARSOC's at now. Yeah, they built that. They built that up like entirely, I think, for MARSOC. Don't quote me on that. I mean, I've been out of the Marine Corps for quite a while, but yeah. So going along with lead tactics, I guess what I want to know, or what I'm interested in kind of hearing, is your perspective on, I guess, on your approach relative to the traditional lens. I mean, you were talking about the lockdown, which I interpret as being more of like a passive state during one of these types of incidents versus essentially being an active I don't want to say participant, but actively seeking out the strategic advantage or seeking out how you can, I guess, change the tide of the situation. So can you just kind of go over the wave tops? To me, that's really interesting.
Yeah, dude, man, I'm so glad to be on here to talk about this because this is, it's like the last guy I interviewed, he talked about having like 3 to 5 people like in your tight network where you can really just together develop and look out for each other. Because, dude, this is a hard conversation to have with certain people, even guys I served with, because they're so removed from it. But, you being a combat veteran, you also now being in what you're doing, I don't want to say it because we don't need to advertise it to everybody, I guess. But, what you're doing now is other defender stuff. You get the mindset where the important thing is, man, if someone is coming after you and you're under attack, come on, man, we don't want to die today, right? Like, how many of us want to raise our hand and say we want to die today? That's just not in our DNA as humans, as living beings, we want to keep surviving. That's the natural tendency. So my whole thing is with training, like I'll kind of revert back to my Marine Corps time. My goal in the Marine Corps was to, just be a Marine. And then, of course, I joined right when the Iraq War started. So, roger that, stand by. And within a year of graduating boot camp, I was in Fallujah, Iraq, or on the outskirts waiting.
Who you up there with?
3-1.
Okay, because I thought it was 8th Marines in 05 to 06 when they were still giving those the year ones. Oof.
For real? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we were probably out there at the same time.
That's
what I was.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I don't want to miss Scott's question. So I was at 3-1. We had 1-8 was there with us in the battle. 1-3, 3-5, Army 2-2, and then of course a lot of support elements. But we were the main infantry units. And of course, us Pogues get attached at the H&S level, and you gotta love those Pogue jokes when you're out there finding IEDs and doing all the demo with these, especially the 0331s out there, the machine gunners. You guys are the worst. Okay, calling out Pogues. Okay. I'm like, bro, did you see that IED? Yeah. Where were you at, Pogue?
Oh my God.
Anyway, so Scott, back to Scott's question. The important thing is creativity. So I like to teach people, if I'm stuck in this box and there's a known threat coming from that doorway, what options do I have? Because a lot of people will tell you in training, I'd be dead. And I'm just telling you this from training as a civilian, teaching mostly Air Force for 6 years as a government civilian contractor for combat skills for pre-deployment. As their lead active shooter instructor, now teaching civilians and even doing civilian classes on my own outside doing firearms and other lead tactics seminars. A lot of people will tell you I'd be dead. And I just say, think about this. If someone shoots at you and they miss, it's a miss. Doesn't matter if it's from 10 feet or 1 inch, a miss. So my thing I try to tell them is use your environment to be creative. And I talk to them about being like a little copperhead snake. So I ask questions like that. I say, okay, how many of you all know what snake bites more people every year in the US than any other snake? And most people they're like black snake or, rattlesnake or blah, blah. And I'm like, copperhead. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, think about it. Think about copperheads. They're very prevalent. Yes. But the thing about copperheads and where you live, Scott, and where I live, they're all over the place. Most of the time, you don't see them because when they hear you walking or hear a larger animal coming, they freeze. And if they're in the open, and I just know this from not being a herpetologist, but being just a friggin' country boy from Central Virginia, like when they're in the open, they go straight like a stick. When they're in like the leaves and the bushy areas, they curl up and they kind of like hide under the leaves. So I bring that up. Why do copperheads bite more people than any other snake in the U.S. every year? Because they have the best concealment, not because they're the meanest, not because they're the fastest, not because they're the whatever, but they have the best concealment and they're very strategic. And when they do strike, they only strike when they have their distance. They don't scatter away like a black snake when they get scared. They wait and they're patient. And they take their moment to strike when it's strategic and advantageous for them. So that's what I teach people to do. I also teach people to kneel down or get in a prone, depending on what's going on. Think about right now, if someone's through the wall behind you and you want to shoot them, they're there. Where would you point your gun?
Hip level, waist high.
Right, because that's how we're taught. Chest center high.
Well,
so
it's,
how about
it's
if I just
grazing fire, like even in infantry, like machine gunnery, that's what you're taught. Grazing fire is, I think, like 1 point something meters off the ground, and that's how when you're gonna mow somebody down. I mean,
horizontal.
Yeah. So
right. So what if I just drop to the prone then statistically I'm now lowering my chances of being shot from how people are trained. So even that stuff, I talk to people about kneeling down and setting up like a little copperhead and getting ready to strike. If someone even if I can't get behind a door or get a solid piece of concealment, if I even just lower my body and use light discipline to my advantage, cut the lights off, or if it's a lot of people I teach in libraries, hiding behind different, the shelving. I was like, just lower your body. So the natural person's coming around looking in the corner to look for another person standing. But when you're crouched down, that little bit of split second could be the difference between you being a copperhead and striking and redirecting that weapon offline, off the body, to then being able to counter, RCAT, redirect, counter, attack, and maybe even take away that weapon. And then, bad day for them. So sorry, I could go like super detail on this. So I'll stop.
No, that was good. And I actually, I guess intuitively, like I guess I sort of think that way myself. I mean, obviously having gone through other training, and especially in the line of work that I'm in now, like, I mean, that's something that we're always drilling, and at least from our perspective, but we don't get to really teach other people what to go through. But I mean, just being in the Marine Corps and being exposed to that training, some of these principles that I guess we as veterans think are obvious, they're not obvious to A, the civilian populace, and then B, the Call of Duty kids that are out there, right? Like it's a different mindset, like you're sort of desensitized when you play these video games as far as like tactics and what works and what not. And you think that's sort of an extension of reality, maybe on a battlefield, and that's really not the case at all. Real
battle, those guys will learn that speed will sometimes kick your ass.
Yeah. And I think what I said earlier was really good as far as it's passive versus active. Like, how are you dealing with this? Are you being passive? Or are you being active? And I think that's what you're sort of getting at, is like, we've got to get away from being passive to being an active. They're an active shooter. We have to be an active defender, and potentially go on the offensive. So I think that's pretty interesting stuff.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And another thing to add too is the mindset, of course, like that's another commonly used term. But if you talk about the mindset of really, how are you thinking about the fears that you naturally have? And I love just literally getting a dry erase board and with my group or audience or team and whoever I'm with. All right, guys, let's just do one-liners. So one-liner word, what do you fear? Let's put it on the board. And if you just pull out the fears, so just pull them out. Let's hear them. And be real about what you fear. Man. Right. Okay, cool. Well, what can you do? Right. Someone's got a gun, you don't. What can you do?
Right.
You can either get further away, right? Escape, jump out windows, get creative, or you can close the distance. That's really all you can do. And that's important, though, to talk about that. Because if you don't talk about it, then it's just this fear that kind of stays within, and it kind of owns you. But if you can pull that stuff out, and you can, the way I like to say it is, if you can learn how to respect your fears, then you can be ready to face them in that high stress, high threat type situation.
Yeah, well, I think just understanding that you have choices is a net benefit to begin with. I mean, like at the most bare basic level. I mean, understanding that, hey, I can close distance, I can freeze, or I can, further myself from this particular threat, or I can pick up a weapon of opportunity, a distraction. You could George Bush him and just throw a shoe at him. You know what I'm
saying? Just that split second's all you need, man.
That's it.
Yeah. No, I also, but a good point is, like, maybe somebody might be thinking, well, why would we need to learn this now? Why? Well, of course I'm afraid to be shot, but you need to really actually think about the situation. So if it does happen, you don't think about it then. You know what I mean? Like right now, let's take this training to get rid of the paralysis. So when it does happen, you've already at least gone through instinctually what you probably should do. How many people, when you teach them, like, do they know about guns a lot, like the demographic, or they're kind of like, they don't know guns yet?
So,
like, is there fear of guns to the people you're teaching to?
No. So I've done some seminars, and one in particular I did at my buddy's martial arts studio right here in Manassas. And I mean, they absolutely loved it. They freaking loved it because, it's Krav Maga he teaches primarily, and he also does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. but Krav Maga is his primary. And the important thing is they do a lot of empty hand versus gun stuff. And empty hand versus gun is important, but one thing I don't like about what a lot of empty hand versus gun training that you'll see out there, and again, my only exposure to it is from my combat skills civilian training I was doing for military units. We had a self-protection program, and part of it was empty hand versus gun / anti-carjacking, because we had a lot of students that would go to Africa and different third, fourth, fifth world countries where carjacking is common. So it was a part of our program. And the thing I don't like about empty hand versus gun is it teaches too much confidence. If you guys ever seen it before or been taught it yourself, it teaches too much confidence where one of the best things to do is comply. Hey man, you want my wallet? You want my keys? Here you go. You know, like give it up. Don't put your life on the line for something tangible that is replaceable. But a lot of people that I train, they do have experience with guns. The problem with it is they, I don't think that the patience part is what I try to drill. Being very patient. You guys ever heard the term "don't run to a gunfight"? You know, or don't rush into a gunfight.
Yeah.
You know, strategy is important. So I now with the school side,
don't be literally the charger that's charging towards. Don't be that person. There's a better way, I guess what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I didn't go to Afghanistan, but a lot of guys I was training when I was getting out, they were going to Afghanistan, and I was hearing about the IED threat with the enemy. Basically would set up IEDs, and they would basically get into contact with you guys, and their goal was, hey, we're going to make them utilize their natural tendencies of using cover, and we basically put IEDs where they would like to go get cover or concealment. And it was blowing the crap out of guys, supposedly. So I think the important thing is knowing how humans are. This person that wants to harm me, it's another human like I am. So they're dealing with emotions like I am. Most of the time, they might know the environment just as well as I do. It could be our workplace. It could be our school. It could be our religious center, whatever it is. But the important thing is I need to master my environment. I need to know how to use cover, and I need to know the difference of cover and concealment. But I also need to make sure that I use angles on my side. I show people how to throw chairs up, and knowing the difference between an inward, as a breacher, this is important for me to know, an inward opening door versus an outward opening door. And that's important to know for barricading purposes. And, all those little details that come in play. So I've created this training curriculum, and you guys, I've watched a couple of your podcasts. My favorite one, of course, was with Dakota, because that was just awesome. And I'd like to get him on my podcast because I was in Karma before the Battle of Fallujah, which is right outside Fallujah. And that's where I think he was his first deployment. But man, just getting creative and understanding the fact that our kids, man, our public schools, our religious centers, they need this training inside our country, because violence is not new. Violence won't stop because the government asks it to stop. Violence won't stop because we think, that it's PC to demand it to stop. This and that. It's not going to stop. It's a humanity thing. But what needs to start is that we start having a mindset where we don't think that we can be predictable in our day. We know, we don't think that we can, have everything we want out there. We need to know that we are very predictable. We are easy targets out there. We are very vulnerable. And our kids, think about this. If you were a large terrorist organization, like what the Chechens did back in Beslan, 2004, they destroyed that school, killed hundreds of kids. If you want to put America to its knees, you attack one of our schools. We must harden ourselves and our kids and our mindset. And it starts with us taking our battle-tested warriors out there, and they can work with my program, Lead Tactics. My goal is to give it to give the training free to any organization that is public and offer it free. And you utilize our instructors, and I'll train them. We're going to train them up, get them ready, and we're just going to sharpen their edges as combat skills guys from the battlefield. And they will be paid for their wages, for hourly, fair wage. But our company will donate the price and the fees for using our curriculum and program for free if you utilize our instructors. You just got to pay their labor hours. That's it. And I literally have it all figured out. So I literally been planning this stuff for years, and I'm just, obviously with school being out right now, it's tough nationally. We're kind of still out. But the important thing is, if we get a lot of us on the bandwagon for this, a lot of combat veterans, and say, look, my kids go to this school district and I'm not happy with how they're being trained. I want them being taught leadership in a high stress situation. And that's why lead tactics it's an acronym, but also an action word as well, because we all know acronyms are the best when it has something else to connect with a word, not just that acronym. Because under stress, I might forget, like, oh crap, what is that? Lock, escape, lead. Oh shit. Yeah, I gotta freaking go. Let's get out that window.
So are you or two things actually, but one, are you actively seeking individuals for this particular role? Or if not, when do you project, obviously these circumstances are pretty unique, but when do you project you'll start seeking these types of individuals out, and where would you like to seek them out from, geographically speaking?
Yeah. So great question, Scott. Appreciate you keeping me on task here with this topic. Yeah, so I've been trying to find guys and gals for a while now, and I'm okay with just veterans. But the thing with combat veterans is, we're that 0.5% of the population, like true combat veterans. And we're the ones that really can come in and take this and take it very serious. Also, just veterans that don't have combat experience could too. They might have theater experience, but not specific combat experience. I have been trying to look. It's a hard thing to do, man, when you're a one-man show trying to get something going. And I've been using LinkedIn a lot since the shutdown, and LinkedIn is going pretty good. I've got a couple invitations for some podcasts and some invites on there in the next few weeks, and people helping me promote not just this, but also like the reunion stuff that I do. I do a lot of volunteer work. But man, it's hard right now because a lot of people don't buy into something until it's already, the train's going,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Early adopters. Yeah.
yeah.
And,
the first step's sometimes harder than the millionth.
yeah. And so for me, I want to take it, I want to make it a training. I want to have on my website, I want to just basically have, let's say Elvin works out in a school district in California. He can go to our website and he can look up where's our regional team for that area. And my goal is, let's say Elvin lives in, San Diego County or whatever, and he maybe can support the 3 counties around where he lives, and he can be a PTOC, part-time on-call instructor. And anytime someone in San Diego County or the surrounding areas reach out, we hit up Elvin, and we ask him to also have a cadre of guys in his area with him. And one thing that is important that he can do is he can go in and do random checks and do random active threat drills with the school, where Elvin will show up and we'll tell them what we're going to do. Hey, we have a contract with you. They gave us 5 dates, and we picked one of the times within those 5 dates to come and do an unannounced active threat drill. It's set up perfect world, like we don't surprise, hey guys, let's do it during a book fair,
Right.
Like,
Finals week.
right. Yeah, exactly. So, but one of the things is, it's like, hey guys, we're here for a drill. It's on our kind of show. But we set it up with the school central office level. Also, one thing Elvin could do is come in and do a morning or an afternoon little crisis management team meeting with the school and talk about lead tactics, talk about, what does leadership look like under stress? How do we respond in these high stress situations? So my real goal is to just take us and what we've done previously, and now bring it back to our own country and say, look, why should we reinvent, or why should we look elsewhere when we have so much talent that's already here?
So is Lead Tactics a nonprofit?
No,
Would that
no.
help you leverage some of these schools and things like that in order to have them buy in? Or
So I thought about the nonprofit route, and I mean, there's so many great nonprofits out there, and they're kind of a pain in the butt, honestly, to run one.
yeah, I know
I'm on
nothing
the
about
board.
them.
I'm on the board with a few. They're just such a pain in the ass, dude. Like, they're really annoying. Like, you got to have this board, you got to have this, you got to have this amount of people for your meeting.
Yeah, it's crazy, like checklist, and you got to stay within said parameters and show that off or something. Yeah,
Right.
It sounds
Right. So and it could be what I do. Right now, though, one other element I like to do is volunteer stuff, like I said, with the reunions and coordinating stuff and golf tournament fundraisers. As I want, one thing I've learned with nonprofits, because I volunteer a lot, is they get very competitive with each other. You know,
Okay.
they're like the aunties in the holidays. Like, who's your favorite auntie? You know, and
they're only funded based on whatever it is that they can show. And if you have more than one person in the same field, you're basically competing for next year's funds.
yes, yep, exactly. And I learned that, Elvin. I learned that. So I raised $60,000 for our 15-year Battle of Fallujah reunion,
Wow.
and it took me like 18 months to get the whole thing planned. It was a disaster, but it worked. And everybody that told me I couldn't do it, I did it. Okay.
Nice.
And we paid for a lot of dudes that couldn't pay for their travel and hotels to get there. We had no cost for anybody at the Marine Corps Museum for the reunion. It was incredible. But I learned, though, a lot of nonprofits, they're very special about holding their stuff tight. And that's fine. That's humans. We like to, especially when we don't know someone, or they're like the new kid in town. You're like, yo, I don't like your basketball, dude. Let's play with my ball. Like, so, but I learned that stuff. And then one thing I want to do, I want to take away, and I want nonprofits to be able to use my company to maybe just advertise their stuff. And anybody who's interested in getting involved in volunteering, because I think veterans, one thing that we should really think about doing is giving back outside of uniform. And not to say that you need to, but I challenge you. If you got a little bit of time on your hands, volunteering might be the best thing that could help you in your career, in your entrepreneurial path, but also just in your servant heart.
I definitely agree as well. I think I think I've brought this before, but like one of the big things that you miss when you get out, it's like that feeling to serve. Like you felt like you were doing something, and then you get out and now you go to school. You know what I mean? So volunteering, you know what I mean? It definitely does help fill in what some people have is that void. So I highly recommend that as well.
Yeah, it's that.
I got a question real quick, man. Yeah, no, but let's just say creative. Like, what's the most common, best random tool you can have? Maybe let's just say in a classroom, like let us say active drill. What's like a really good thing to look for real quick to defend yourself? Like,
what I'd honestly say would be like one of those little kids' chairs. Lightweight.
Kids' chairs?
Lightweight. You can use it. It's almost like like you're doing like some prawn fishing. Like, like you take that thing
it's
and
right
jam
there.
it.
Yeah, super light.
Jams through, right. And it can be that kind of shield between you and your body. Easy way to redirect a weapon, because the heavy part of the weapon would get caught in that chair. It's a great question. I've never been asked that question. I like it. Let's see.
So this is hypothetically based, right? This is not good because we don't have any parameters set. But what would you? No, I'm not knocking your question. Your question was actually really good, but it kind of spurred this in me, which is and this is situational dependent. So you probably can't really answer this question, but is it more important to gain cover, or is it more important to prioritize something else, like establishing a weapon or establishing something that can create distance? And I guess that would be solely dependent upon where the threat is in relation to you or in relation to another group of people. and obviously what's around you. So it's really an open-ended question. I guess it's more theoretical. It's a statement. It's not a question.
I mean, so here's the thing. Let me say this first. So I got to see twice the entire 5-minute video of the Parkland High School shooting, like the entire thing. And it wasn't like fuzzied out, if that makes sense. It was the entire thing. And what I would say is just cover is tough in a place that you don't have full control over. And what I mean by that is you're very predictable. That shooter didn't go into one classroom when kids were in the classroom. He didn't go into any classrooms where there were other kids. He either shot you from the doorway into your classroom or shot you in the hallway. And so in a class, if you're in a room somewhere, it's hard to really get covered. You know, you have your, you guys remember the strong wall, right? Coming in.
Yeah.
Well, if we're clearing, we're going to use a strong wall to come in and own the room. So strong wall really though is that wall that takes you out of that fatal funnel view from the doorway. And in this video, you couldn't see it, but a lot of kids he shot on the first floor where 3 of them were right off the bat in the hallway, but then he shot a bunch of kids in the classroom. And one of those kids was pushed out into the fatal funnel because they were competing for space, 20 plus kids competing for space. I saw your wrestling picture from high school, Scott. Your 103-pound self, you would have been in the fatal funnel. You would have been scrapping, dude, grabbing ears and eyes and lips, but
yeah.
you would have been in the fatal funnel.
Without a doubt, bro. I'd have been hitting some double legs to get back to that wall, though.
But the other thing is, a lot of these staff members would have their desk in that fatal funnel as well to hide from principals and administrators coming in line of sight view from their doorway. But so it's really hard to get cover unless you really own the battle space with another impact weapon yourself. Does that make sense? If you're a defender, if you're unarmed, you don't really have the ability to own cover.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Meaning, think about video game wise, because the human's organic. They move. They're going to move around. I would say just getting the frig out of there, creating space. Get on your horse and ride off. But holding cover would not be my recommendation. I would recommend, exit.
And that's the other thing about cover is, like, even if you could find cover, or even if it's in an office room an office building or a room within the building, without, like, I guess to your point, like, without a weapon to return some sort of threat with, right? You're stuck, because once you leave that cover, well, there's two things. One, when you're in the cover, you're subjected to whatever's around you in that immediate cover for you to defend yourself with. And that could be nothing. And many times it probably is nothing, especially if you're just sitting behind like some obscure wall. And now you're like, well, I've got nothing around me. So I'm either a sitting duck, or I've got to vacate this premise, and I've got to basically expose myself to whatever open area that there is to get to said next area.
Right.
So
next rally point or next, phase line, whatever you would call it.
So it's just tough though, because, like, especially if you're in a room, it's like, well, I think most people, and myself included, you're like, oh, I'm in a room, I'm good. I'm excluded from the hallway, or I'm, you know what I mean? Like, if I expose myself to the hallway, now I'm in this really narrow line of fire. And I only have a certain amount of options, spaced out to the next hallway till I can make a right or a left, or I don't know. It's a really, really tough scenario to really think about.
Right. And at that point, like visual,
I think a big thing might be just, who's the leader? You know what I mean? Is that taught? Like, somebody becoming, do you assign a leader? Does everybody try to be a leader? I would think, yeah.
Great question. It's a great question. So that's kind of why the lead tactics thing even makes more powerful sense to me. And of course, I'm selfish to my own horse here, But it's a great thing you say, leadership. And this is where leadership naturally comes out, right? Like, how many dudes in combat did y'all see like, oh shit, like that dude's like legit. You're like, hey bro, anytime we're getting shot at, yo,
You're the guy.
you're in my patrol. Good to go? Okay. Okay. Or make sure you're in my team or stack, whatever it is. But leadership comes out, and dude, I mean, I've seen some incredible warriors on the battlefield. And I'm not saying I was one at all myself. I was just there to be a team member. And but I saw some incredible actions on the battlefield in the streets of Fallujah. And the leaders will come out. But the thing is, we can be better leaders together if we develop as a team with conscious, direct, approached leadership, where we talk about it, we discuss it, we train it. We don't just let nature take place.
Also, the issue of appointing somebody is it's a centralized command, which is never a good thing. You always want a decentralized command.
Especially when training is pretty much a joke for these schools and a lot of these drills. And that's another thing we could talk about. That's a hot mess. But another thing I want to add to this is most states require drills to be law or code annually. And the important thing is, this is what we need to challenge our fellow veterans and these combat veterans out there too. If our kids are required to do it, why do we not have the best trainers out there teaching them? And I'm not going to say the law enforcement can't be part of that, but the important link to law enforcement, remember what I said earlier, the civilians don't have their proper weapons of distance. Law enforcement, in our country, they always have that. So their mind is different than a civilian mind. I'm just saying it. That's why training civilians is important in this stuff, because you can understand what it's like to not have that weapon of opportunity, but you have the mind of opportunity, which is creative, and you give that conscious leadership approach to where you just don't, hey, I don't have this, roger that, what do I have? You know, you keep saying, all right, cool, I don't have this, well, what do I have? You keep moving down the line of, hey, man, I still got a heartbeat. I'm still here. I got that window. Like Virginia Tech, you know, Scott's in Virginia. I'm from Virginia. I got some family that goes to Tech. My mom went there. And got some friends that were there during the shooting. Not in the building, but were there. So they dealt with the stress of it. But learning that case study, a lot of people jumped out of windows from the second story to survive that incident. A lot of them used clothes. They tied them together to help lower themselves down. Creativity happens when we're challenged to survive. But my whole mindset is, why can't we learn how to teach our kids to thrive in this imperfect world?
Well, let me ask this question and give my thought on this. You're saying that there's a by law requirement to host these types of trainings, but they're not really trainings. They're just drills. Like, is anybody actually training? Like, I understand what the point of your company and what you're trying to do, but does that even exist? Because I've never seen any school undergo like, hey, we're bringing in this team of instructors or whatever, and we're going to go over X, Y, and Z. It's usually protocol driven to the point of like, hey, we're going to do an active shooter drill. This is what we're doing. You're getting under a desk and you're going to sit there for 5 minutes until you get the all clear. Is that
great question? So there are some companies out there, and I'm like Apple, where I know who my competition is, but I don't give a F. Okay. Most of these other companies are like Samsung, where they're just trying to compete with Apple, you know? And like, yeah, Apple might have a product that Samsung has Samsung might have a product out that's better than Apple's at the time, but you ask Apple about it, they're going to say, okay, cool. Roger that. You know, there are some companies though, and one of them is called Alice. You guys ever heard of Alice?
Oh, that's all I'm going to bring up is I had Alice training like 2-3 years back when I was working for the college. It was given by the police there, and the police gave the Alice training.
Right. So Alice is a civilian company, and I want to say this before anybody from Alice gets pissed off. I'm just, hey, your training's solid. I've been through it, the 2-day training you had.
Mhm.
The important thing to add with this is if you're going to use an acronym, a chick's name is not a smart one to use. I've asked a lot of people this. They're like, oh yeah, I've been Alice trained. I'm like, really? What's her name? What does it stand for? Huh? Alice? What does it mean? What does it mean? Let's go. I'm like, like under stress. What does Alice mean? They're like, Alice. And I'm like, awesome. You were taught a chick's name to respond to an actor threat imperfect situation. So yeah, people know what to do when they're taught Alice and Elvin. Do you remember what Alice means? Can you tell us?
I have no idea. I just remember they were like Nerf balls, and you just throw them back at the shooter. And no, there was like decent stuff, like using the belt to hold down the door. I thought that was pretty, innovative.
And the important thing with Alice is if they can tie in the mindset, it helps the student audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at. Like I got super high passion where I don't let the mindset drift during my instruction.
Yeah.
And I've been a formal instructor now for 10 years. And I was horrible at first. Like, I got hired to be a counter ID instructor for the government right after I got out of the Marine Corps Reserves as a sergeant. And then I get there and they're like, they're like, oh, you're not EOD. You can't be counter ID. I'm like, do you know who finds IEDs in the Marines? Okay. Anyway, I was like, cool. So they made me a marksmanship instructor. And in boot camp, I unked, by the way.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, full disclosure.
Hey, I love
that's
why
the
they made me a
humility.
saw gunner. I was a saw gunner for the Battle of Fallujah. So I got a 189 in boot camp. Had to recoil. I had to pack all my crap up. And they're like, you're getting dropped. Pack all your shit up. And packed all my stuff up. And I had to sleep in the back rack because my drill instructor was just, trying to mess with me. But I got to I tried the next day and I passed. Anyway, so
Glad to have you.
My last qual, I did shoot expert though. It's questionable if I had help.
There you go.
Okay?
It's a linear progression.
So,
yeah. It's slow, sure.
Back to Alice though. Okay, back to Alice.
That's why it teaches you to stop guns, not shoot them.
If you're taught an acronym that you can't remember and utilize it for like an action word, it's limited on what it's going to do for you. So I thought about Alice when I came up with my acronym. Alice is the competition that's out there. I won't say for me because they're always going to be there. And guys, there's thousands of school divisions.
Yeah.
And the important thing is I don't want to compete but with anybody but myself every day. I'm competing with the guy I was yesterday. And COVID sucks, okay? You make me friggin' compete hard because I hate the guy I was yesterday because I did a better workout than I did today, okay? But what's important, though, is that we think about our kids in mind. We think about what do we want them to tell us when they have this conversation with us at home. Like, hey, we heard that you guys did active shooter training today at school. We got an email about it. Can you show me what you guys did? And I'm telling you right now, 99% of us out there that have kids in schools and they show us what they were taught at school, we're almost all going to be pissed off with what we see, especially combat veterans and especially veterans that understand what combat and crisis looks like in training and also in those combat veterans that know what it's like in real war. Because when our kids, I had my own second grader when she was in kindergarten. I said, show me what you did. And she showed me. And I said, this is the important thing to ask. I said, how do you feel sitting over there where you're sitting? She's like, Daddy, I feel scared. And that's what's important. If our kids feel scared,
question to ask. That's a great
our kids
question
feel
to
scared, we're doing something wrong. They should feel like they're being prepared for something, not scared because the fear of something. Am I going too like all
No.
of
It's good. It's good. But I guess, and I understand where you guys were going with this, with the whole Alice thing, but is this training going on for staff? I guess that's the delineation I'm trying to make. Is it going on, like, Elvin, you're part of the staff at the school, so like you got this Alice training, but the students themselves aren't.
Yeah, they get it too.
They are getting, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's part of, and dude, Alice, dude, good on them business wise. those guys make some bank.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because they charge – anyway, we don't even get into all that. You can look up their website. They're training. They're proactive. They're doing good stuff. I have business expenses and stuff, but I'm not doing this. I literally, any public entity, you can use our training curriculum for free if you're in a contract with us. I'm not here to make money off you. I'm here to get other people paid for their skills to help our kids and staff members who are working public service jobs be more prepared and less scared, period.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you're doing, because I actually we only met like recently, and we haven't actually met in person yet, but we're going to, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we're gonna drink many beers. Okay.
Many's a stretch. I mean, you don't know me. I don't really drink that much, and when I do, I get drunk pretty quick. So
okay, we'll drink 3 beers. Okay.
Listen.
Take it easy on them.
Yeah, take it easy on me, bro. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you're doing this, because I think this is actually really important. And it's definitely, the more you're talking about this, the more I'm actually sitting here thinking about it, for one. And it's not something that I've been thinking about, I guess, relatively recently, obviously, because we haven't seen school shootings, right? So it's not a topic that's been in the news. And then 2, I've got kids that are starting to go through the formal schooling process. I mean, they're very young, but they're just kind of starting out in their school. And I guess for whatever reason, I mean, I'm caught up in the daily rigors of life, and I'm not really thinking about it. But now that I'm talking with you, I'm hoping that other people are thinking about it, because now I'm really thinking about it. And I mean, that's why you see me engage. I'm trying to like pick your brain almost, because I'm genuinely curious about the topic, and I almost feel invested because of what I do for a living, and then obviously having the kids. So,
yeah, but you've been tested on the battlefield too, man. Like, what death looks like. You know what happens when someone has a plan in their head to attack. That's what's important. Is we can't sit back and say, "Oh, let's just mitigate the damage." No, that's important, but let's counter the planned damage. Let's take them out. So, another thing to add for our kids, and thanks, Scott. And guys, I love this subject. I can talk about it all day. So what I've been doing for 10 plus years as a civilian now. The important thing is it's got to be something that we think about. It's not a trendy thing.
Yeah.
I don't bring this up when Las Vegas happens. That Las Vegas attack, thank God it wasn't more killed.
Yeah.
Thank God. And when people – anyway, sorry, I'm going to go real quick to Jason Aldean. If you want to judge someone who's getting shot at and doesn't know where it's coming from, okay, go raise your hand and serve in the United States Marine Corps when wartime starts, okay? Don't judge someone when they're getting shot at. The dude had no idea what was going on. Jason Aldean, I'm speaking about here. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but for that whole, like – first off, like that, just scenario wise, I mean, this guy had elevation. He's got these long rifles. I mean, how the hell? No one would know where the hell this guy is shooting. I'm not looking up like at the buildings in an open setting. Like, oh God, I wonder where this guy is shooting from.
You're like, what's Paul's?
Yeah, like time out.
Everyone has an opinion after the fact.
Yeah,
Right. Anyway, I had to say that because I have never said that to anybody, but I've heard a lot about people judging him for not saying they're shooting at us. You guys know what I'm talking about? That he was getting judged pretty hard for, like, he could have, like, said something to the crowd. It's like, yeah, the dude was singing and then he got shot at. It's the last thing he's thinking about.
Yeah.
At the time, you didn't even think it's shots. You might think it's fireworks. It's Vegas.
True.
Processing that. Dude, it's crazy to process that situation.
Yeah, and then to react, in accordance with the vision of 2020 retrospective vision, like it's such a ridiculous. That's dumb. I don't have words for that. It's just like, just to try to explain it, it's like so dumb. Like, why would you judge anybody in that particular position? It's like
because they haven't been in combat. That's why.
Yeah, I guess. It's just. Yeah, I got nothing on that one.
So, I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole. Like, let's get back into the.
Bring it back, all right? Bring it back.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Good. Is that what it
So
says behind you?
last but not least, I wanna talk about the way forward for you. And I know we talked a lot about your business as far as what the general focus is. I know that you're also are you putting, as I understand it, are you putting together some sort of merchandise as well? Like, and also I want to just briefly kind of go through the podcast, because I know you have a podcast and I wanted you to highlight that as well, because we haven't really talked about it.
There we go.
There's my logo on my first edition shirt. And then here's the back. Some little moto, get your friggin' blood flowing words here.
Okay.
So that's my first edition. What it is just branding. So thanks for bringing that up. I'm just trying to brand it with, I want people to understand, like there's so many things that I want to do with lead tactics. It's just funny where it started. It started from me thinking of an acronym that could work for active shooter training. And then I thought about, I was like, really, like leadership is a tactic. It's a characteristic. It's a trait. It can be natural, but it's really a tactic that we have to keep sharpening and working on every day. Because one of my leadership traits that worked yesterday, it might not work tomorrow with a new audience or a new environment that I get exposed to.
Right.
Yep.
And, my job as a Marine, when I was attached to, so I lived with Lima 3-1 at the prison, Abu Ghraib prison, right before the battle, which was like vacation. It was so cool being there. It was like just chilling. And we go out and just do our presence patrols and teach dudes how to brush their teeth. Be like, yo, we call it jacked up grill day. Be like, yo, you're effed up, bro. And then, 2 weeks later, we're the main assault effort for the Battle of Fallujah. But being attached to, think about, you train up with your team of guys and then you go to combat and you get attached to guys you don't have any clue who they are. That lesson taught me in life that I can't predict who I'm going to be working with, who I'm going to be fighting with to survive, who I'm going to be supporting tomorrow. But what I can do is be my best self. And my next edition shirt on the back is going to say lead tactics on top. It's going to say 51% self-investment plus 49% team investment equals 100% maximum output. Because to me, you got to bring your best self every day. And then you can develop and work with a team. But if you don't bring your best self, you're actually hurting the team.
For sure.
Because someone's taking your little bit of weight. And I was that. It was tough being a young man, a young boot, a young friggin' pogue attached to a grunt unit. They didn't know me, but they had to trust me. And, and I can't forget my brothers that didn't make it home from that battle. It was the deadliest month in the entire Iraq war. And I saw some incredible actions, like I mentioned earlier. But I need to remember that those that didn't make it home, their energy didn't die there. It's now in us. And it's my job now, as I keep going and keep moving through life, to remember them and to remember the America that they raised their hand for. And that's us continuing the next generation, where we have to tell the history. And we can tell it all from everyone's perspective. That's fine. We have to tell it, though, where we all can just shut up and listen and respect it and try to take it to move forward and not.
I think it's a great way to do it with lead tactics, because you're taking, obviously, that energy, that same exact energy, and you're using it to hopefully teach the youth exactly how they can be the next lead, acronym wise. Yeah. How they can use that. So I love the way, like you said, taking that energy and using it here. So great job.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Yeah. I will say this real quick. There's nothing like getting a standing ovation from a group of high schoolers when you tell them that you're, I was presenting to them and I told them that I was, a combat veteran from the Iraq war. And when I was done, they stood up. They literally stood up and did a standing ovation. And seeing that, I hate saying it, but I don't see that. If I told them that I was or if I was wearing my police uniform, for that county or district, I don't know if I would have had that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying there's nothing against police. I have plenty of friends, and I thought about it for many years, becoming a police officer. I think what I was more worried about was being untrained from my combat experience of having ROEs that were very thin. And, shooting first and then regretting my life after that. But, man, I really think there's a lot of combat veterans out there that can get their purpose back and impact back from taking their experiences and not reliving in the past, but the past is real, right? The past is real. And the faster you can acknowledge it and accept it and really learn how to filter it for the present to then move towards the future with where you want to go, you can use that fuel and energy and adding those names of those brothers that didn't make it home and let our youth and really our next generation of warriors understand that, hey guys, we're in this together. I might be old and salty now, but hey man, I'm still on your team and I'm serving outside of uniform now.
Amen to that. Can you also go into the podcast a little bit and tell us about your podcast and what the premise of the podcast is and then where you can find it and how often you drop episodes, etc.? Yeah,
sure. Yeah, thanks for the plug for that. So the podcast is, I was talking to a friend a while back, like the MC that was for our Battle for Fallujah reunion last year. And he and I got real tight again after years and years of not really talking. And I told him, I was like, hey man, I really want to start something where guys can realize that the medicine they need is within. Kind of like what I mentioned before. So I came up with another acronym, friggin' Marines and their stupid friggin' acronyms.
It ain't that you learn the Marine Corps.
JJ, my buckle. So I came up with PILL. So the weekly PILL is what it's called. So the PILL stands for Purpose, Impact, Leadership, Legacy.
Nice.
I dig it.
And the reason I came up with the PILL is because, again, it's, hey guys, sometimes just take your own friggin' medicine, dig in deep, and just let's develop ourselves from, again, what we've done in the past and reflect, because reflection is very powerful if you can use it. To not live in it, it's like you got that Ferrari. You're living in it going forward. The rearview mirror is still here, still in your line of sight view. But only look at it when you need to reflect, okay? But remember, we're moving that direction. So the podcast is designed for extraordinary veterans out there that have done amazing things in uniform that are now doing incredible things outside of uniform.
Nice.
Elvin, are you getting bit by a dog, dude?
I've got two vicious dogs.
Do you?
And
Scott, huh?
the guy that's cutting the lawn is right outside, and I have the windows open or the blinds open.
Yeah.
And they're holding it down. All right. Yeah. So
I thought Elvin was like shaking off a dog. It looked like he was starting to shake a little bit.
No, my dogs are vicious, man. Like they're like, it's always an incident with them. Bit the mailman. I got the.
Oh man,
that could be a whole nother podcast, dude. We have 4 dogs, and I had to rehome one recently because he bit our neighbor.
Really?
I
got it on the Ring app. I got the whole thing recorded. It's pretty epic. And then the mailman takes, how they have like those digital scanners?
Yeah.
My dog lunges at him. He hits my car. He dents my car with his ass. He got launched up against the car, and then he takes the digital scanner and he's beating my one dog over the head with it. And I didn't blame him. I mean, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
It's combat, dude. He's in combat right now.
He was doing some lead tactics shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Weapons of opportunity. There was no cover. He couldn't go anywhere. He had to go to town.
Favorite story.
There was no escaping that part.
But the pill. So back to the pill. Sorry about the.
Oh, you're good. I got 4 dogs, so I'm good with that.
But anyways, how often do you drop it, and then where is it found?
Yeah, so I've only done 3 episodes. I just put my last one out on Sunday. So I'm like any entrepreneur. Like I'm ahead of myself. I'm just super. My passion is here, and the operation is here. So I only have the YouTube channel now. The YouTube channel is sticking with the guns of Lead Tactics. So you can find us at Lead Tactics on YouTube. And I'll post everything there until I figure out how to do these friggin' podcast channels, which are a pain in the, you know what.
Podcast channels on what? Like
so
audio?
Yeah, on audio.
Go to Buzzsprout.
I have that. I just set it up, so I'm waiting on now.
If you need help, let me know. I'm not a professional, but I've got my thing down to some degree. So if you need help, I'll help you out any way I can.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I just set up Buzzsprout like a week ago, and now like the little digital picture, thing you got to do anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, Elite Tactics on YouTube is where I put them. So it's a video version, and the important thing again with this is we have to make sure that we come home and tell our story. We just had our virtual reunion for the 16th Battle of Fallujah last week, and they asked me to be the MC for it, Simplify America's Fun. And it was pretty cool because, I'm now connected to Sergeant Major Kent, Colonel Shupp, General Thompson. General Dunford was on there. Gunny McDay was on there, which I'm going to bring him on my podcast soon. So be ready for that one. The Navy Cross recipient who ripped his gear off during the night in the Battle of Fallujah in the dark. He ripped his gear off to save a bunch of Marines, climbing over walls. He was like a little spider out there. Anyway, awesome. He was there. And the important thing is all these generals and these colonels that they tell you all these years down the road, don't forget what I told you, gents. I told you to tell the story of Fallujah, because that fighting was terrible. We could talk about that a bunch too, but the important thing with that is that was the first Battle of Fallujah. Didn't work for politic reasons. That's why General Mattis was so pissed off. That's why he won't really come out and talk about it a lot from what I've been told. But the second battle, it was right before George Bush got reelected. And we even got to hear General Metz, who was the Corps commander last year at the reunion. We had General Casey, the 4-star, General Metz, the 3-star, General Sattler, the MEF commander, General Natonsky, division commander, Colonel Shutt, regimental commander. We heard them all speak, and we heard a few of them speak this year as well. But they told us the stories that we never would have known. And that's what's important, is we learn these stories now as we get older, and that we're now in our prime of our mid-30s to 40s. Scott, I know you're like, you enlisted when you were like 12. Okay. You lied on the paperwork like a bunch of guys back in Vietnam. But what's important though is we tell the story now of what we did, and that's how the heroes that I say that we have, the ones that didn't make it home, that's how they live through us. And that's how we pass the generations on down the road. But yeah, that's what the podcast is for, man, to keep the stories going, but help us as we move through life. Because life's tough, man. And the legacy part, I'm very in tune with my, mortal self. Because mortality is real, and we've seen it. And, it's, how do you want to be remembered one day? Well, if you don't think about it and talk about it, then some people might not have an idea how to share your story.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah.
But
listen, man, it was awesome having you on here, and I'd be more than willing to have you back, because you're a super interesting guy. You've got a lot to talk about and bring to the table, and you're just an insightful all around person. So
nice,
I want to extend a warm thank you to you, and I know Elvin, I'm sure Elvin feels the same. I'd love to link up with you in person. We've already spoke, so we'll speak offline about that. But any last parting words that you want to kind of leave everybody with?
I just want to tell you guys, thank you for what you're doing, because I know there's got to be some days where you think about like, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for attention, for self? Am I doing it for empowerment? But just a little bit of the daily grind when we're all feeling rough. This is just in general, real quick. When we're feeling like we're having a rough day, or like something's not working, or like I'm putting useless energy into this and I'm not getting anything back from it. My challenge out there to you guys is shut up and do 50 burpees, okay? And you'll be all right.
I love it. Elvin?
That's good advice, man. That's good advice. Yeah, no, man. Again, thanks for just taking the time to talk to us, put us insightful. These are things that, like Scott was saying, you don't really think about until it's brought up, and it's something that should be in everybody's minds. And especially when you already have a kid, like that's something that you don't really think about until that situation. So everything you're doing just looks great. The logo, the fact that you care about the name, people are like, why would you dude, like the name is so important. Like you said, like that's your brand, it's who you are. And when you think of Lee, you want to think of these things, which is different from, just something called Alice, where I think they just kind of, yeah, exactly. So like just the fact that you're putting me is double meaning. I feel like if they went that way, they were just trying to think of words and just make any word, which, with you took the acronym of a powerful word and then you gave it powerful meaning. So continue to do that. I can't wait to see like the resources and the people you partner up with, because it's going to be awesome.
Thanks, man. Elvin, dude, you guys are cool, man. Both of you guys. And Scott, I like that you have Elvin on here because he's like the suave, like Miami Vice. Like he brings in like the style.
He's what was Stefan? He's Stefan from what's that? Family Matters.
They got showings, man. I got
alter ego. He's the alter ego. Oh my God.
And one last thing I want to say for anybody that has kids: if there's little things you can do with your kids at home, like the game hide and seek, I've gotten creative. I have 2 daughters, so I call it princess. They're my princess ninjas, and we play ninja hide and seek. So I teach them how to be little copperheads. So when they hide and I'm like, nope, it didn't work. Nope, do it again. Run it back. So I set them up. If they sit down, that's not a copperhead. Copperheads are always ready to strike. So I set them up kneeling, and they're like hiding on a knee, and they're just gonna shoot right at me once I find them. And I take my focus mitts or my tombstone, and I walk around, and they just destroy me. And I'm teaching this. Yeah, I'm teaching the mindset. The ability's not there yet, but guys, the mindset has to come first. The kids have to think in their head that they can win this situation. And if we can do that with our kids, we can do that with the adults, and we can unlearn the issue of active threat response nationally, where it's this, oh my God, it's so scary. Yeah, it's scary. You know what's more scary? Having one option in an imperfect situation. The Marine Corps never taught us that, ever. We always had options, okay? When the 5.56 doesn't work, 7.62. When the 7.62 doesn't work, 203. When the 203 doesn't work, small rocket. When the small rocket doesn't work, JDAM or Javelin, okay? We just keep going up, and we win the fight, and we breathe for the next day. So anyway, thanks, guys.
All right, bro. Hey, stay in touch. If there's anything that we can do for you, please let us know. Reach out to me. You got my phone. And then we'll definitely link up soon. Thanks, bro.
All right, guys. Hey, be safe out there, guys.
You too. Later.
Take it easy, brother.
Later.
Like what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by .milledgear.com.